What does power mean to you, Christine?
Okay, so power, when I think of power, there's a spectrum in which we can explore power, and I think it has to do with the context and our perspective of power. But innately, when I think of power, it's who we are when we're being our most authentic self, when we are in integrity with our truth, when there is no hindrance of what is pure and what is authentic. And I say that because when we're allowing ourselves to be our fullest expression, naturally we're magnetic. Naturally we're oozing the essence of creation, which like moves in harmony with all other things, the same way that a tree has a role, the same way that a bird has a role, the same way that a water has its purpose. When we're being what's natural to us, we're playing our role in creation, which is naturally powerful, right? And when I think about power, I want to emphasize that it's not force. It's just a natural occurrence. And at the same time, power in our history had a very distorted point of view, depending on who you're looking from. And it has this context of domination, of control, of hierarchy, of I'm above you, I'm this, I'm that, right? This um, distinction between all beings, when I think that true power is the essence of who we all are, right? And when I think of power, I also think about there's a scripture that says that we were made in the image and likeness of God. So if we were made in the image and likeness of God, then we cut from the same fabric of reality itself, of the source of the creation itself. That is power. And with knowing that power, knowing that our thoughts, our feelings, our emotions, all of what makes up our beingness, our soul, when we are in alignment with that, when all parts are harmonized, power is a natural expression.
So it's a natural expression, and it's something that we should not actually be ashamed of in a way, because we're expressing ourselves as what we were intended to.
Hmm.
Where do we give our power away?
The first thing that comes to mind, especially in this social media world, is comparison, right? As soon as we start comparing, oh, this person is doing it this way, this person looks like this, they have this. Soon as we go into the separation of our what's true here by comparing it to someone else, we lose the pure essence that is coming through us in every moment. We lose the channel, the connection to the vessel in which we're operating on, that when it's most authentic, when it's most true, when it's in its natural expression and playing its natural role, it exudes truth. And truth
Mhm.
can be a form of power, right? Compassion can be a form of power. Love can be a form of power because all of these essences are what create life, right? Or create blockages in life. And so comparison is another is one way we give away power. Another thing that I would say that is giving away power is our relationship to time and space.
Mm.
Because sometimes our relationship to the way we think time should roll or we think things should happen start to dissipate our power because it takes us out of the flow of what's happening now.
Elaborate a little bit more on that, because I'm a really time oriented person. I say don't put a don't put time activity to your activities, but put activities to your time. So I'm
Mm.
really like scheduled when it comes to like, I have this hour, I'll do what I can about this hour versus just letting whatever time it takes
And I
sometimes.
think that's great. It's great for us to have structure, right? Because structure allows us to align the power that we have within
Mhm.
us, right?
Mhm.
But when our relationship to time becomes a cap on life's process, right, on how we think it should go, what the time frame it should happen and where we should be at this certain time, then we start to dissipate power because we move out of that timeless flow of creation that's moving through us in this current moment. and
Mm-hmm.
we start controlling again, right? This is where the illusion of power starts to take us out of power, where we think we can control, where we think we have to micromanage or we have to force things to happen. Those are all things that take us out of being with
Uh-huh.
creation, being in our power. Right. And we're actually starting to work against our power, and we're moving into an energy of force. And there's a difference between power and force.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Uh-huh. Okay. And when it comes, because we were talking earlier, that you help people in corporate events and corporate structures, how does that power play, that inner power play, this need of control appear in those spaces, and how can it be healed?
Mm, okay. So there's an example that's coming very fresh in my mind. So something that I notice is oftentimes when people are put in a position of power of leadership, what their awareness of leadership is, again, is connected to this idea of I need to control this person to make sure that they get this outcome. And there's oftentimes this character that comes to play that even disconnects people from being true. And so when I'm bringing in this mindfulness movement, or this invitation for people to connect with themselves, to connect with their vulnerability, connect with their truth, connect with their essence, you start seeing a more playful person, a more relaxed person, a person that is human come alive, as opposed to this identity that sometimes plays out that locks them into this rigid structure that they think this is how I need to be in order to maintain my position of power, so that people respect me, so that they do what I tell them to do. When oftentimes it creates separation because people cannot relate. And I do believe that when you are in certain positions, that of course there are boundaries, and there are things that you need to honor to maintain uh the dynamic, but the dynamic does not have to cause separation where where because I'm playing this role and you're playing this role, now we can't harmonize, we can't come into to uh to union with
Mm-hmm.
our energy, with the way that we are approaching our tasks. And when leadership is coming from true power, rooted power, grounded power, power that supports all beings, there's more harmony, there's more flow, there's less people being so much in their head and fear of making a mistake, and there's more, again, that authentic expression where true power lies, where more creativity can come, more solutions can come, more flow can happen, because people are just being natural. And so I see it happen in corporate oftentimes, where there's like this need. It happens a lot with women as well. There's women in these roles of power, and they're being highly in their masculine, and so it disconnects them from their softness. It disconnects them from their feeling body, right?
Mm.
I've seen it even happen in women in corporate, where they're so disconnected. They're so tied to this identity of power, of the illusion that they need to play, that they're not even honoring what's happening in their body, and their body starts responding and creating ailments and sickness because they're going against their natural flow.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
And it's happening beyond the corporate structure, but I do see it often happen in there, where there's like this persona that I need to be tough and strong, and a different kind of strong, not the strong of like resilient strength that comes from you being able to show up over and over again, and and meeting your edges and going past that, but the strong that's like, oh, I need to be hard and tough and rough in order to be respected and to be honored.
Mm-hmm. Mm. And so based on what I'm hearing you, right, but by you entering this like grit, or this like I need these shells, right, these armors that women that you're sharing tend to create, how can they get aware of that, and how can they in a way go back into their feminine?
So it's so funny because one of the exercises that I have corporate people do, and it seems so counterintuitive, but it's hilarious. So first we always start with a breath, and then I make them throw a tantrum, because I always ask, do you anyone in here have children? And usually everyone's like, yeah, we have kids. Do you know that when a child is throwing a tantrum, what they're actually doing is regulating their nervous system, right? They're allowing the uncomfortable emotions to move through. one of my mentors, I love this awareness, said that what has gotten her to this multi-million dollar organization, and she has multiple organizations at that level, was her ability to deal with pressure and tough emotions, right? And sometimes in this field, right, or these roles, it's hard to connect with our emotions because they're like, no, if you connect with your emotions, you're being weak. But
Mhm.
actually, if you know how to work with the emotions that you have, emotions are energy in motion. You learn to move the energy in a different motion that creates outcomes, right? And so it goes back to power again because we're literally co-creating with how we're being in the world. And life is a mirror. It's just giving us back that who we are. So movement the or simply the awareness of what is happening inside of my energy body right now. What's happening in my body? Am I tense? Am I holding pressure? A lot of people in that environment hold a lot of pressure, tension in the neck, in the shoulders, in the back. Also because they're sitting, they might be sitting all day, right?
Yeah.
So the whole the natural functioning of the body is going through a working here that we need to support. And we can do that through movement, right? I love yoga. I love dance, especially for women. I love to invite women into dance, and not the kind of dance that's mechanical that makes you look at how you're moving and making you have a focus on that, but a dance that allows you to have raw and primal expression. Now, of course, in the corporate world, that's it's like, okay, well, are we really gonna do that? But yeah, I invite people to do that, and then it starts to create this it starts to take that hierarchy energy and bring people back into a synchronization where there is no titles, there is none of that. There's just us working together for a greater good.
Mhm.
So movement, breath, being mindful of your breath. When we go through stress and tension, there is a change in the way that we're breathing. So being mindful, am I taking full breaths here? Or is there a shortness of my breath? All of this is an invitation to see who and how we're being in the moment. And are we present to the experience that's happening inside of us? And through the presence of what's happening inside of us, being able to be in harmony here allows us to be in harmony with all things around us, even the chaos, even the things that feel challenging, even the things that feel hard. If we're in alignment here and we have presence here, then we have more capacity to deal with the fluctuations of life because we're solid within our center. So a lot of what I invite people to do is to come back into their center. What do you need to do that, right? It can be it can be movement, it can be breath, it could be singing. I use
Mhm.
singing all the time. Like when I'm going through a tough experience, sometimes you put on some music, it starts to bring you out of the state of the overthinking mind into the flow state, right? Now you're going coming back into your own rhythm. Now you're coming back into flow. Now you're coming back into vibes. So these are some of the strategies and some of the tools that I use on a day-to-day basis for myself, with my clients, and with the people that I serve, that we can remember that this body is an incredible temple, but it's also an instrument. And so we can learn to tune the instrument when the instrument is out of tune, out of sound, out of sync. And there's so many different ways you can do that, right? People have all some people like exercise. There's yoga. I love yoga. I love dance. I do belly dance, right? I also love my bachata, my merengue. Uh, whatever gets me out of here and brings me back into flow. So yeah, these are some of the ways that I invite women back into their feminine energy, into their softness. Also being present with who they're being. Naturally in society, women have a role of like being a nurturer, being a server. And this is also a way that we give away our power sometimes because we're so locked into that identity and into that role that we often forget to serve here first and let everyone benefit from the overflow, right?
Mm.
And sometimes women run themselves dry, right? I've been having so many women clients that are mothers lately, and it's not an easy journey to be a mother or to be a parent, right? Because the father
Mhm.
is also going through that process. If you're going from a journey of not having children to now you have a baby that's keeping you up all night, and so you're not having sleep, you're not having, uh, what you need. You're totally giving your life force off to this newborn baby. So how do you take care of yourself in that moment? How do you create spaciousness? How do you make room to come back and tend to your garden? Baths. I love to take baths, and I love
Mm.
to suggest baths. because they drop in, they soften you, right? Especially if you like a warm bath, the hot water starts to melt your stress away,
Yeah.
right? Some
Ah,
people like the opposite. Some people go and they do cold plunges because it
boom.
shocks the nervous system. Like, oh, we're wide awake here, right? So anything that brings you back into the now, right? Even mindfulness when you're eating, when you're walking. Are you rushing through the world, especially in a city like New York City? Everyone is like, go, 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 go. But one of the things, even speaking about time, I started to realize anytime I'm fighting against the clock, like, oh, I need to be here at this time and I'm rushing. If that energy of rushing starts to create a dissonance within my body or discord within me, I start to notice time starts speeding up. But when I slow down what's happening in my inner world and I'm not fighting against time and I'm working with the time of my own flow, time starts to slow down. I've watched myself bend time all the time
Mm-hmm.
without rushing, with just being like, okay, I'm going to be with the experience. Life starts rearranging in that way where time melts.
Mm-hmm. Mm. Wow, so many places to talk about. Well, I want to go through the New York question. What called you into New York? New York is such a powerful place, such a masculine place as well, like a lot of masculine energy, but also a lot of creation. So what called you in there?
Well, you know what? I'm looking at your background right now, and someone told me about this one time. They said that New York is a crystal. It's a charging port for energy. And I mean, I was born in New York, first and foremost, so I was delivered here
Okay,
when I first touched down on the planet. Um, so I have roots here, and
got it.
I've traveled all over. But there is something really special about New York that you can't find anywhere else in the world. And there's an amalgamation of cultures, of language, of perspective here. So it's like a hub for the whole world in one place, right? So within that, I love it. I love New York in that way that there's so much that it has to offer, but there are times where I need to come out of it. And that's why I love to travel because travel has allowed me to broaden my perspective, take what I see here in New York, but also amplify my awareness of like where are these cultures actually, what do they stand for? What do they represent? What does the life look like outside of that hustle culture, right? And then being able to bring it back because a lot of people say, oh, when you're here, you're overstimulated. And yeah, there's lots of energy constantly moving, lots of noise and sounds and lights, and everything is stimulating us here. But I feel like it's been a great place for me to work on mastering my inner world because if I can be sovereign and solid within my own self amongst the chaos, then I can go on anywhere in the world and be able to thrive because I've been in the most craziest of energy, right? And still can find my center.
Now let's talk about traveling because yeah, the traveling for me also it's a beautiful experience. And if I heard you correctly, you have the amalgamation of all the cultures in New York, but then you also want to travel to these other places that where the cultures are originating and coming from. So what's maybe a trip that changed?
I always like to say every time I travel, I change a little bit. I transform a little bit because there is something also about the brain, right? The brain expands when we go into new places. It starts making new connections. Um, but I will say that there were a couple trips that every time I go on a trip, I'm transformed. But the biggest transformation that I experienced was in Mexico. And a couple years ago, back in like 2019, I was getting this deep call to go to Mexico. It was showing up all over my world. And I booked a trip with two of my girls to have a girls' trip. And then soon as we booked the trip, I started having all these crazy things happening. Like I kept having crazy dreams that the waters were rocky and that all these crazy things were going to happen. And I kept seeing the crossroads. And I was like, oh my God, I feel like we're not supposed to go on this trip. And so I canceled the trip, and lucky thing, they're still my friends today. But but it continued. The calling to go to Mexico kept continuing, and I had a desire to have a spiritual experience in Mexico. I wanted to go there and have this spiritual expansion. And so I took that calling that kept calling me, and I started to become more intentional. And at that time, this was before Mexico blew up. This is, Mexico had a core, but a lot of people weren't going there at this time, especially in particularly Tulum, right? And something happened in 2020 around COVID where everyone started going to Tulum. But
Ah,
I was part of that call. Like I got that call to go there during that time. And when I went there with this intention, it was the first place that I ever went to in the world that I felt home.
mm,
And I've been to a lot of different countries, but there was a homecoming that happened there. And in particular, I want to share a story, well, two stories. One, I went to a ceremony. We did a mushroom ceremony with a very beautiful elder there. And one of the first things that she had us do before we went into ceremony was she had everyone kiss everyone's feet. And
huh.
it was such a humbling experience because it brought everyone down. We've been talking about hierarchy and power and all these levels,
Yeah.
and it leveled out the playing field. And it
Uh,
created such a deep reverence for all of the souls that were there because we're like literally bowing down and kissing the feet. And so of course the mind has like all these things, but then once you get beyond the mind's stories, it actually became a very deep space of devotion and honoring everyone that was there. And it created this huge energy of love and respect. And so this was like the tonality of how that trip began. And then later on in the week, I went to a cacao ceremony. And we'll tie this into the artist because um, it was the first time that I had this reclamation of the artist. We were sitting in a cacao ceremony. Everyone was consuming their cacao. The drums were playing, and everyone's singing, and we're dancing. And there was this freedom, this liberation spirit that occurred. And I started to look at everyone and their beauty and their expression, and I was like, oh my God, we are all artists. We're all creators, and it it really it really cracked something open in me that started to make me want to have ceremony. I wanted to start playing all these instruments. I wanted to sing. I wanted to dance. And all of these places where that was just like, okay, we did this in certain environments, or we did this like, maybe we'll do it when we're cleaning. But it started to anchor in this deeper awareness that this is actually a part of who I am.
mm,
And there's a saying that a shaman said one time, and it said, if you ever, and I'm butchering it right now, so I'm sorry to the original author or creator of this saying, but it was something along the lines of, if you ever get depressed, or you ever feel anxiety, or you ever feel disconnected from who you are, ask yourself, when was the last time you danced? When was the last time you sang? When was the last time you played? Because that is literally the direct portal back to your soul, to your essence, to your freedom. And yeah, and then of course, like, we met at Artist Power, where that was all it was about, was total expression. Who are you, where you when you allow yourself to have total expression of who you are.
mm, Yeah, Artist Power, just for the listeners, it's a beautiful retreat hosted by Garen Ashe and another group of beautiful artists that, yeah, I'm grateful to just have had that experience. And I was able to have it even with my mom. So that was indeed a blessing. But so you're expanding this part of the artist, right? What else do you think that retreat opened for you?
At Artist Power.
Yeah.
So before we get into the retreat, I'll just tell you there was an amalgamation again of moments that started to
Mm,
happening. Like, soon as I said yes, all of reality started to rearrange, and all of these crazy synchronicities were happening. And originally I didn't want to go to the retreat because a friend invited me. And I host retreats, and I host space and circles and
yeah.
events for people. So when I'm thinking about going to a retreat, I don't want to host space at that point. Like, if I'm going to a retreat for myself, I want to be able to be fully immersed. And so I've often refrained from going to experiences with other people just because I want to be in my own experience. And so
Uh,
when she invited me, I had a friend that invited me to go on this retreat, and I was like, no, everything in me was like, no, I don't want to do that. But then all these signs started happening, And there was a moment where I said yes. And everything started responding to it. Like right after I said yes within my being, I saw a license plate that said, "Come on, let's go places." And I was cracking up because life was like, "Yeah, go this way, go this way." Um, but once I got there, I will tell you what I felt prior to going there was that I didn't feel like anyone fully was able to hold space for me, right?
Mm.
I felt like I hadn't met someone that was able to meet me in my depths and hold me in my depths. And prior to going to the retreat, there was a moment where I got on a live with Garen, and literally within a few seconds of just being on the live with him, my whole body like softened. And
Mm.
I noticed there was a different expression coming through me because his capacity was able to hold all that I was coming with. And we didn't even say much on that call. There was a lot of just holding space and presence for what was alive. And that moved something in me. So there was also that part of like, okay, there seems to be a space here that I can meet my reflections and also maybe a larger capacity of myself here. And that was exactly what that retreat did, right? It was like a training in expanding your capacity, meeting your edges and going beyond it. And and then it was so much fun. It was so much fun. And I've explored many different dimensions of healing from plant medicines to different kinds of therapy. And I will tell you that the whole time that we were there, I felt like I was in the presence of God. And it was so beautiful. It was like pure beauty just watching everyone be in total unrestraint, total freedom, releasing the mask. Who are you without the mask? And it was like a playground for adults. It was like a playground for the soul, most
Yeah.
importantly. And there was so much that came from that, right? Through the play, through the laughter, through the joy, through all the inner work that we did there. There were so many revelations and visions and just like pieces of my own puzzle that were coming together and witnessing my reflections and also through the space that Garen held. So art is power. It was that art is power, the artist, the art within us coming alive and just activating again, going back to our power, right? Our true power, essence, without any definition, just freedom. That which, I refer to scripture a lot because sometimes life speaks to me in that way. But
Yeah.
there's a scripture that says something along the lines of to enter the kingdom of heaven, you have to return to the child, right? The child within. And the child within, right? When we think about power, right? A baby or a child, it doesn't have any restraints on its expression or its capacity. If it's crying full out. If it's angry full out. If it's happy full out. And so where did we start to learn this confinement around our expression that says this is too much, this is too loud, this is too this, that starts to, you know, box our expression, which is our power. Right. So
Yeah.
so if you think about when you ask me about what is power, power is a baby full on to the world with no limitation, just fully free in all of it, in the range of all of it.
Yeah. Mm. Mhm. So that full expression, and I see the value in you being clear on wanting to be held, wanting to be reflected. And that's something that you found in this retreat. But let's now talk about when you are holding space. So how was your journey of you learning how to host retreats, and what are those retreats about? What have you learned about hosting other people?
I'm always gonna say that it starts with the journey within, right? As you start to learn how to hold space for yourself, for your bigness, for your range, that begins to extend out to your daily interactions with people. Because
Mm.
you can hold the capacity of you, or I'm speaking from the I, right? Because I started to learn to hold the capacity of me, of all of my ugliness, my darkness, my shadow, but also my light, my beauty, my expression, it started to broaden the way that I experience people. on a day-to-day experience. And it started to dissipate filters, which allow more of people's expression to come through. And as I started to be more and more free within myself, I would just be in my environment wherever I'm going, and I would start to see how my energy was impacting and affecting people. And so it started to grow this awareness. And I'll tie it to this. I've always been the connector. Like since I was a young girl, I was always the person that made everyone come to my side of the block to play the game, right? Like, come over here, we're gonna play the game, right? And
Yeah,
then
yeah.
when I was in high school, I was I was the captain of the basketball team, and I won the Spirit Award because I would always be lifting people's spirits up, right?
There
And
we
then
go.
my mom used to tell me when I was younger, I think you should be a guidance counselor because you're always giving people advice, right? And so like the thread of my life kind of
Mhm.
naturally opened that space. And there's also a saying that say, your gifts will make room for you. So I started to see it. And the thing is, once you see your calling, you can't stop seeing it. You start seeing it in everywhere that you are and everything that you do and every encounter that you have. And I started seeing it through that lens, how this work that I was doing to free myself, to liberate myself, to heal myself, was becoming the lens in which I'm experiencing life and who I'm bringing myself to every environment that I'm at, and I couldn't shut it off.
Mm.
So it started growing this desire to want to expand that because I do see as I started to do this work how it transformed my life, and it grew this desire to want to serve people so other people can create freedom in their life, so they can also see the beauty, the glory, the divine essence and energy within themselves. Because within holding space for that, whatever gifts and talents and ways they're meant to serve can expand. So that and then we also spoke about travel, right? So a couple of years ago, I was in a relationship that was very eye-opening.
Mm.
And in and one of the greatest things that it brought me into awareness was there was a day where I said, "Oh my God, I'm dating my dad." And
Wow.
and when I had that realization I was dating my dad, this idea of generational trauma or generational curses started to grow in my awareness. And I started to see within the world that there are people that are having healthy relationships, and I just got the wrong formula. And this desire started to make me seek. And this is actually where seeking the Empress came from. Seek the Empress came from seeking the Empress within myself.
Ah.
I wanted to discover the Empress. And so I started to research and just follow these natural inclinations towards energy healing and chakras and so many different modalities, and it started to take me around the world. One of the places that I went to was Jamaica and Thailand, and I started going all of these retreats, all to all these different places, and I started meeting teachers and mentors and people who became my guides. And I so again, this idea of like what was already natural in my life, who I was already being in the world, getting people together, along with now this expanded desire to heal myself and then spread this awareness, started to build that desire to, okay, we're gonna have retreats, we're gonna hold circles. And I will say, we're gonna rewind too. There was a moment a few years ago where I had a dream about my womb bleeding. And the next day when I woke up, I went online to look for some kind of like spiritual environment with womb, like womb work. And I had no idea what that was. I didn't even know that was a thing. But
Ah.
it led me to this women's circle that I went to. And that women's circle was a womb circle.
Ah.
And when I got there, I felt this homecoming energy again, like, oh my God, I feel like I'm meant to be here. I'm meant to do this. So all of these small little moments of like following the breadcrumbs of my own journey and my own liberation started to also awaken what feels like my mission and the ways in which I can bring that mission into the world. And so it started to open these doors of retreats. And so the first retreat that we created was called the Marry Your Soul Retreat. And it came to me as a download in Mexico. I was in Mexico from that trip that we spoke about, and I was having all of this healing happening inside of my life. all this expansion, all this heart opening happening. And one day while I was there, I was in the ocean and the waves were teaching me about how to ride the waves of life. I was just listening to nature kind of guide me through the process of navigating my own waters. And
Yeah.
as I was in the ocean, this reef, it just came into my hand. And when it came into my hand, the first thing I thought of is like when Mary put Moses in the basket, right? And sent him on that journey. Like that was the first uh, vision that came to me, and it was like it represented birth. And then the next idea was like, oh, you're getting ready to birth something. And
Wow.
while this was happening, I was with a group of women. We were on the beach. We had just did a beautiful ceremony, and we were on the beach, and we created this beautiful altar on the beach where we turned the beach into a huge heart with stones and just like all of these natural elements. And we started to deeply connect, and naturally, like all these women started coming together. Women were coming from all places, and I was like, oh, this is the gathering, this is what's birthing. And but I sat with it for months and months because I couldn't fully understand what I was birthing. Like the birthing process was birthing me. And then there was also a moment while this came into my hand where I turned right and I saw this wedding happening. And
Ooh.
for the whole year, I kept seeing this wedding. And I was like, am I getting married? Is that why I keep seeing this wedding? And one day I went into it was like an 18-day juice cleanse. And I had
Mhm.
gotten really disciplined and devoted to my morning practice. I was doing mantras, I was meditating, I was doing my belly dance and my yoga. And the revelation came to me, marry your soul. The marriage is of your soul, of
Uh-huh.
these two polarities within you, your masculine, your feminine, your inner child, all these dimensions. And so that was where the Marry Your Soul retreat came to birth, because I was birthing myself and I was marrying myself, right? Marrying these different poles of myself. And that was originally how that idea came to be.
And when you're hosting retreats, that is just beautiful because again, it's a sequence that I see in you. It's this ability to just listen to what the world is teaching you without having to have it written like a message, hey, this is what the universe wants, but you're able to capture life in metaphors and analogies. And I think that's really, really powerful and unique. But then that transformation, you can send it to to the women that are around you. So I love that. I love
Thank
that. Thank you for sharing that.
you.
And when it comes now to those retreats, right? Are you currently just doing it yourself? Do you ask for support? How does that happen?
So I do have it started off as something that I did on my own, but not fully on my own because I had different facilitators and service providers in Mexico, because the retreat started in Mexico. Well, actually, no, we had our first retreat in Pennsylvania, and that was a co-collaboration with other women who were holding space, and we all came together and created that. But then the second retreat that I did was in Mexico. After going to Mexico and having this beautiful expansion myself, I wanted to start bringing people to Mexico. And at that time, I was also creating and designing my life of like, how do I put all of the things that I love to do into a creation in the world? And I was like, I love to travel. I love getting people together. Let's go to Mexico and have this expansive experience. And so while I was in Mexico, I met some really amazing facilitators and people who also provided service to me, and we collaborated and co-created that retreat. And I've kind of been creating in that way too, of like as I'm meeting amazing people, we bring them along. But I do have some team members who are a part of the core.
Yeah, nice. Okay. How important is that to create this experience?
My mind is going in multiple places, but I will say this. When a creation comes to you, I feel that it comes to you because the creator is literally appointing you, because you already contain all of the ingredients that creation needs to bring this to life. And every time I've ever followed a creation, I've always watched some part of my life expand, a door open, a connection made, something that enhanced my own evolution through following that creation while also witnessing people transform.
Hmm.
So, in regards to that, I feel like we're all given visions and ideas. I think Will Smith said this. He said that ideas are like messages from God, right? So when we follow these messages from God, we're doing God's work in that way, right? We're like bringing expansion to life. And there's a beautiful Disney movie. Have you ever seen The Never Ending Story?
Well, tell me a little bit about it. Maybe I might.
So it's about this boy who like goes into a bookshop and he's and the story unfolds into this magical world. And while he's in this magical world, what happens is we start to see when he's not following his dreams that darkness starts to take over the world and the world starts dying. But when he's
Mm,
following his dreams, life is expanding and creation is happening and all these beautiful things start to grow. And so I literally feel like that's what happens to us when we're given a dream, when we're giving a vision, when we're given creation, the responsibility of creation, that when we follow it, it takes our own life force
yeah.
and not and which extends into life itself, right? It's like
Hmm.
life moving through us to bring creation forward. And when we don't follow it, a part of us dies. A part of creation dies.
Hmm. Mm. Hmm. So you've you birthed even like the Empress. You were seeking the Empress, right? What where else in your life have you seen that title manifest? Like where did that come from? Because Mexico, I think it was like you were marrying yourself, but where the was the Empress?
Okay. So in all honesty, when I was in a relationship back in like whenever I was in that relationship, um, there was a lot that I was learning from
Ah,
that particular gentleman. And a big part of what I was learning was he entertained a lot of women.
mm,
And in that process, I kept witnessing, well, what is it that these women have that I don't have? That was where my mentality was going, right? What is it
yeah.
that's wrong with me? But I also used it as feedback to learn about where within my own energy I was out of alignment. And
Hmm.
the title of Empress kept coming out of his mouth to other women. And it started
Huh.
to draw this awareness to me of like, well, who's the Empress? Right? And what is it about the Empress? And so that's where the root of it began. But as I started to connect deeper with the Empress and activating my own Empress archetype,
Yeah.
it dissolved from this comparison or need to be energy and more of a discovery of, oh, this is actually a part of me and I'm drawn to this because the Empress represents the sovereignty within a woman that rules her own kingdom or queendom. And
Mm.
it started to take me into these deeper revelations or invitations into my own dynasty of me. So where it once started there, it was an invitation back here.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. Yeah. Mm. So you have that part that it's within you, and you made it your own, right? From and where how can you how can you reflect that to other women who might be comparing themselves right now to other women through social media, through their moms, their parents, like their other families? What have you seen that 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 takes that comparison out?
I'm going to bring back that relationship because there was a lot that I learned there. But one of the things in that relationship that taught me a lot was this person had their own life. And in going into that relationship, I had made that person my world. I sacrificed myself, my desires, my intuition, all of these things, which, again, going back to what we said, those were all ways I was leaking power.
Uh-huh.
try to support someone else's identity or what I thought I needed to be in order to be loved, right? So after leaving that relationship, I've actually been on a celibacy journey for the past 6 years. I have not dated, have not been in relationships. I've only been in relationship with myself. And it's been one of the most beautiful journeys that I've taken because it allowed me the time and the space to explore so many different things: my needs, my desires, my curiosities, what is true for me, what feels good for me, what I like and what I don't like. And the more I got in tune with myself and married myself and loved myself, confidence and sovereignty were a natural byproduct of that because it's being in harmony with what's true for me. So I feel like naturally, and I noticed this journey within a a healing process with my mother. As I started to reclaim my voice and my truth and my wants and my desires, at first it was really triggering to all of the limitations that were taught to her. And so
Yeah.
she had that comparison energy, right? Not only did she have that comparison energy, but she had that energy of where she was repressed in her own expression. So it was very triggering. And
Yeah.
we'll tie that to what you were saying about power, because as you start to reclaim your truth and your essence and what's alive for you, and you step more into your power, it triggers where people are not free. Your freedom
Uh-huh.
starts to trigger where people are not free. And I've had to learn that not everyone is going to accept and like you in your power
Mm.
because it can often bring up things that they haven't faced yet or their journey hasn't brought them through yet.
Mm-hmm.
But being true and honest to yourself uh, allows you to stay in harmony, which allows you to stay in power. And I'll tell you this, I'll tell you something that's coming up for me here. So recently, a lot of boundary work has been coming up for me, right? Like,
Mm.
where are we expanding our boundaries? What are boundaries? What does boundaries look like? And I had an experience where some longtime friends, been in my life for a long period of time, where this version of me came to visit them. And I could feel a huge dissonance within where I am and where they were. And again, no comparison, right? Because we're all in our own journey. But I could notice when there was jealousy and judgment coming up. At first, I was just witnessing it and I didn't judge it. And so I didn't have an experience. But later that night, when I was by myself, I started to feel all of this ugliness in my body, like the
Mm.
pain, the unprocessed, the darts, the negative thoughts that were happening towards me, and the words that they were using that were like poison. But they were only like poison because it was their own lack of consciousness, right? But I'm experiencing the texture of what it was feeling like in my body. And so as I was exploring boundaries and power and visibility and taking up space, I was noticing the part of me that was like, okay, now I need to protect myself. And the protection started to close off what was coming naturally. And what was coming naturally was really feeling like I was becoming a vessel for God to speak, for God to act, for God to express, right? I felt very connected to this divine being. And as soon
Yeah.
as I started to judge, because there was a part of me that was judging a little bit, right? It's the part that says, hey, you need to protect yourself. So boundaries means I'm not going to be friends with this person anymore. I'm not going to connect with this person anymore, right? And when bind your energy in that way, I started to realize I started losing power because judgment started to take me out of my flow, and it took me into this mechanism which I guess is like considered the victim mechanism, right?
Mm.
Where it that you versus me mentality. But simultaneously, as it was taking me through that perspective, it started to take me to their perspective and why their vision is the way that it is and why there's dissonance right now, because their current life experience had certain conditions that were blocking their filter from seeing that which was being triggered through my experience.
Mm-hmm.
So life took me through the lens of that, then through the lens of compassion. to witness what is without identifying, without labeling. Because oftentimes when negative things happen in our life, if we don't process it and reframe it, it starts to become a file. And that file that gets stored there not only colors the way that we view that person, but it starts to show up in other areas of our life because it's now a file from which we pull our experience from, our perception from, our life experience from.
Mm.
And so tying this all together, I started to notice how boundaries are the way that I preserve my respect for myself, my honor for myself, my truth for myself, without condemning or judging someone and where they are, because we all have the ability to transform and become more. Which allows me to stay in that divine grace. And when I'm in that divine grace, my channel is clearer, my power is my impact is more powerful. All of these things that would create more confidence and more power amplify because I don't have discord within me. And I know I went in like a bunch of different directions there, but I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, let's talk about boundaries a little bit more. So how can you teach someone boundary holding and boundary creation?
I think where I would go with that is first becoming aware of what's happening in your body, right?
Mm-hmm.
Energy never lies. But there's a thin line between pure energy speaking to you and your trauma response speaking to you,
Ah,
right? Because your body could have learned to protect itself and to do all these different things in order to deal with your life experience. And you could be saying, well, my body and my life experience is saying I need to protect. And you
yeah.
close off. So when boundaries are rooted in fear or self-protecting, then that's usually a space where you're avoiding expansion,
Mm-hmm.
right? But when it's coming from a place of self-honoring and self-respect, there's a different texture there. There's a different experience that you have, and you can feel it viscerally in your body where it's not closing you off. Another thing that was happening to me during that time was like, you can witness what's happening here without closing your heart. Because when you close your heart,
Mm-hmm.
you're disconnecting from your power, you're disconnecting from your source.
Yes.
And that kind of boundary is rooted in fear, not self-honoring. Because when you start closing your heart off, you're not honoring your truth. You can't even feel your truth because you're armored.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that would be a distinction of how can I honor what I need, honor the truth of what this experience is requiring me to do to preserve my energy, my honesty, my truth, without closing my heart and shutting me down.
Mm-hmm. Mm. I saw another video the other day that also talked about boundaries. Boundaries not telling people you cannot say this, but it's more about if you ever do this, I will do this. Like I will take a different action based on what I consider appropriate. But that expansion of keeping your heart open, it's so difficult, but so essential to just keep that creative juice flowing as well at the same time.
Because once the heart's closed, your creation closes. Your flow
Mm-hmm.
closes, right? There's so many things that close off. When you start closing yourself off to you, essentially you're closing your heart off to yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not easy. It's really not easy to do, especially if you have wounds from betrayal or abandonment or whatever the things are that play out when you're in the opportunity of creating a boundary. But it really is a part of energetic mastery to be able to witness it
Mm-hmm.
without making it change you,
Mm-hmm.
fundamentally change you, right? Because you can change your actions to adjust your sail to to protect. Well, not to protect. We don't I don't want to use the word protect because protection can come from that place of closing off, right? But
Yeah.
to honor what's alive because life is always moving in different directions. So how can we stay true here without needing to do anything to change the outside,
Mm-hmm.
but just support what's happening on the inside?
Mm-hmm. Mm. Is there anything else that you might recommend to someone who wants to that nourish that insight, nourish that soul that you found in your journeys?
Absolutely. I think intimacy with your soul is so important. And there's so many ways that people can use different outlets to get there. Journaling is a beautiful way to like open the channel of your soul's language by creating a sacred space for that inner language to come alive. Um, Meditation. I know there, some people have challenges with meditation because they're actually finally sitting with the unresolved and unprocessed things, and so it can feel like anxiety. But when you learn to be the observer of what's happening, observing the observer within you, right? Becoming aware of what you're aware of. You
Yeah.
start to disassociate from all of the labels, the constructs, the storylines that have formed who you are, and you start accessing this higher self, if we will call it that, or this part of yourself that's not bound by limits, not bound by stories. Um, so that some people do art, right? Like when you're drawing, right? You're an artist, right? When you're drawing or you're creating, it takes you into that timeless space where you can drop in and feel that connection or you can hear that wisdom. Sometimes for me, driving. When I'm driving, I don't know, there's something about the mind just that's free. It's focused on a task, but it's also free where I start getting so many downloads. I start hearing my own voice. A bath, again, I spoke about a bath earlier. I love having baths because baths are just like, they're gonna be here with me, right? So whatever allows you to create intimacy with your soul is an opportunity to do that. Some people boxing. Some people go and they box, right? Some people run, some people exercise. Whatever you need to do to create spaciousness
Mm-hmm.
with yourself. And
Mm.
stillness is key.
Stillness. There we go. How can people work with you, Christine?
So I offer coaching services. I do have a retreat coming up in May next year. We're going to be going back to Tulum. Uh,
Nice.
yep, I have some digital courses that are coming soon. We have a community that we're building with that. I have a book coming out. So these are some ways. I also speak. I do speaking shares.
Speaking experiences,
Yeah, speaking
experience.
experiences. I do keynote speeches at different summits and conferences, and I facilitate experiences, wellness, mindfulness experiences for social companies and I'm sorry, for corporate companies. I am also in the realm of social impact. And so these are some of the ways that you can work with me and come into my world. You can also tap into my Instagram where I do my best to serve and create content that really elevates the consciousness and provides people with a space to come home to themselves.
Mm. Final questions. If you were to talk to Christine, sorry, that was in that relationship, what would you say to her right now?
I still talk to her. I do.
That's a first.
I still talk to her. Um, First and foremost, I would celebrate her because she is embarking on the journey that is about to open so many beautiful doors of wisdom within herself. And she's about to explore so many hidden dimensions of reality and who she is and her lineage. And I would celebrate her for for the willingness to do the deep work, to go on this journey, to discover, to be present with herself. I would tell her that You are enough, and you never needed to change anything about yourself to be worthy and to be loved and accepted in this life. And girl, it's about to get so good. So don't give
That was epic.
up.
Christine, Empress, thank you so much for your energy tonight. We made it happen.
Yeah,
And
so
I
much.
hope to see you soon as well.
Absolutely.
All
Somewhere
right.
around the world.
Very well. All right. Thank you.
All right, thank you.